I love that movie. So much cotton candy cocoons.
I thought you were going to say I Love Lucy for a minute.
We have another question over here.
Yep, right over here.
I have an easy one for the Walking Dead crew. My favorite show on TV right now is Walking Dead. So when you get off the set, what's your favorite show?
You know, I've been really into The Flash. You know, it's like, I don't know why, like, my dad watched it for a while and told me to get into it, and then I just watched like 16 episodes one day, and then like another 8 the next day. But I really enjoyed it. It's coming back on in like 2.5 weeks. I'm very excited for that.
I would say Game of Thrones for sure. As a matter of fact, I was at the Emmys last week, and I got to talk to the makeup people on Game of Thrones and American Horror Story and all my friends. And we were so excited about each other's shows that we didn't care that we both lost. It was a Game of Thrones I love. American Horror Story one, actually, which I hate to say I've never seen it, but they're great makeups on that show. I love Homeland. I love The Americans. There's so much great stuff on TV. There's, everybody talks about, and John and I talked about this earlier, the stuff that we're able to do on TV now. Some of the makeup effects and the gags that we do, George Romero got an X rating on the original Dawn of the Dead because it was so gory, and we're doing more on TV than he could do in the theaters in 1977. Wow. So it's pretty fascinating.
And AMC is commercial television. That's what's so remarkable. I mean, HBO and Game of Thrones is cable, there's pay TV, so they can be extreme and stuff. But that's commercial television. It's true. Their gags on on Walking Dead, that if it was in a feature film, you'd get an R and then C-17.
Good question. Thank you.
Awesome. Another question here.
This one will be more for Jim and Mike. Last year, I walked into the maze that had the dollhouse, and it smelled like Play-Doh, and that was just so creepy. Talk about how you assault all 5 senses. Well, you've said it perfectly. I mean, that's the one thing we want to do with the guests as they're going through the mazes, and try to attack as many senses as possible. Yeah. So smells are incredibly important. One of the coolest days that the team gets to experience every year is what we call Smell Day, and there is
It's not cool.
Oh, it's awesome. Where we have a vendor who is, she's a scientist. She creates smells, and she has a briefcase she'll bring in with all kinds of smells, from pumpkins to cupcakes to cookies to...
He's giving you all the good ones.
Yep. Because then, in the bowels of this suitcase is a smaller suitcase made out of metal.
Why it's called the bowel.
That she then opens up, and it contains all of the most horrific things you could possibly think of. This woman also does work for the military and law enforcement to train them in certain types of smells. So she can actually chart rates of decay and give a certain smell for each one. So that's some of the research that goes into some of the items that we place in a maze, and when we want to. Not all the time, because if we do it in every maze, then it's not nearly as special as when, if you smell it in several mazes as opposed to all of them. But yeah, it's a smell day, and it's one of many days in our process.
So on Walking Dead, every day is smell day. It's 120 degrees. Every day
beans for lunch.
Yes.
Gosh, that's awesome. We have another one from Twitter, actually. I just love this question so much. Mike, why don't you take this one? What was the most difficult scene from a house or scare zone to pull off this year? I think that might highlight something cool.
Wow, that's a hard question. 3D mazes, rather than a scene, I think a 3D maze is a completely different creative process than all of the other 8 mazes. 3D employs all kinds of different aesthetics that we have to employ in order to lay the color palette out, to create the layers necessary with the glasses that the guests wear, so that we are ensuring that when you're going through, you are seeing depth. So that's a very tough type of maze to create, because also it's a maze that's entirely lit. We're not afforded the luxury of doing things in darkness and then illuminating where we want. A blacklight maze has to be completely illuminated in some fashion for all of that to work. So 3D mazes, I think, in my opinion, and I'm sure
You call them 3D mazes, but you mean blacklight mazes.
yeah, the 3D is easy with the palette.
Chroma-depth. Yeah, 3D.
Okay.
But I'm sure every person on our team would probably have a different.
What's that 3D maze? Are you wearing glasses in the 3D?
You are. Yeah.
No, but why?
Because the glasses actually, depending on the color palette, create depth. So certain colors.
So it is 3D.
It
Yeah,
is
it's chroma-depth. Yeah.
certain colors.
Okay, so there are 8 mazes this year now. There's only 8.
I'm going
Not just shut one down.
I've never been in one of those because I said, "What is that?" They go, "What's cool? It's all black light." And so then I went, "Eh."
Yeah, but how the colors play out, there's depth. Certain colors pull forward.
There's now 7 mazes. The American Werewolf maze.
Are there
At the end of the day, it'll be Walking Dead maze, the only one you can get there.
Do we have another question?
Are they all?
They are. We've done some homework, John.
Right.
Okay, well, there you go. I'm glad I came.
Here we go, right up here.
Yeah, I had a question for John. I wanted to ask this a couple of years ago, but I kind of Andrew Lincolned out. I'm over here, right here. Hi. I think we'd all agree that the special effects in American Werewolf in London hold up to this day. And I'm curious how you feel about directors going back to old films like Spielberg with E.T. and Lucas with basically every movie he's ever done, going back and redoing the special effects. And were you ever tempted to go back and do that with any of your films?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't let me, so that's different. George owns his movies, so he can do what he wants. But that was totally not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going like practical versus CG, and I had this great answer. But then,
But tell the story you told me backstage about the scene with the bums that you.
no.
Don't tell it.
No, you know what? No, because
That was a terrible story anyway.
it's not to the point. But no, I actually think that my personal opinion is that George hurt his movies by doing what he did. However, George said to me, "But they're my movies," and I thought, well, that's fair. However, did you know Disney, by the way, is putting out the original Star Wars the way it was and stuff? So
I didn't know that.
yeah. So, well, Disney, they're like money on the floor, you know.
I think they're like 30 miles from here, by the way.
We're on a 7-second delay, right, on the live stream. 7-second delay.
We're live. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and hit that a
Wait,
couple
I
times.
like Universal, like we're not. But the truth is that, yeah, if I could, I don't think I've ever made a great film. I've made very successful films, and I've made some films I like more than others. In all my movies, there are things I like in them. But for instance, Coming to America is a movie I made with Eddie Murphy. Thank you. And Coming to America is the fastest movie ever made. From the day they said you got what's called a green light to the day it opened in theaters was less than 6 months. And I might add, there was no script when we got a green light. And I've made 2 movies that way, where both Paramount for one and Universal, the Blues Brothers, where they say, same thing. Can you have this movie in theaters by August? And you always say yes. You know why? Because it means no budget. Because you're in production. So that's, so I was able to, like, Coming to America, there's a big dance number because I could, like, and I've never, on the Blues Brothers, there's a famous moment where we're in Chicago shooting, and Ned Tannen, the head of production of Universal at the time, came out with this thing saying that that's a $12 million movie. And Bob Weiss, the producer, looked at me and he said, we've spent more than $12 million. I've never forgotten. Anyway, Coming to America, because it was made so fast, we literally were cutting negative, scoring, and mixing during principal photography. And the day it opened in about 4,000 theaters was less than 3 weeks from the last day of shooting. Wow. So we were locking picture. And so it meant, one, I never had a preview. I mean, just boom, went out, because those were prints those days, you know. We had to give Technicolor 2 weeks to make all those prints. But the other thing is, that drives me crazy, that movie, because I think I like it, but I think it's too slow. I'd like to take maybe 15 minutes out of it, like speed it up, just just speed it up. So in fact, when it was going to be on Blu-ray, I asked Paramount, and I said, would I be able to do it? You know, and they looked at it. I'll never forget. I won't tell you the man's name, but he said, "John, the movie's made over $600 million. No."
We have another question right over here. Okay, it's gonna be right there.
They're fighting over it.
Mine. This is for Greg Nicotero. First of all, thank you very much for The Walking Dead. It is my favorite show on television by far. And I've been a zombie geek for decades now, and for a long time it was almost like Romero was pretty much the only game in town for really good stuff. And my question for you is, do you feel like you are a continuation of that legacy, or is there some kind of maybe competition of trying to top that?
Well, you know, excuse me, my first job was Day of the Dead in 1984. That was my first gig. So George gave me my first job. I loved those movies. I never saw any sort of competition, but if you look at the Walking Dead comic book, it certainly borrows religiously from Night of the Living Dead. So I'll never forget when we wrapped season 1, Frank Darabont and I were talking, and he said, "Do you think George would ever come down and direct an episode of The Walking Dead?" And I called George, and he said, "You know," he goes, "you have your zombie stuff and I have mine, and it's cool, and I have my world and they're different worlds." And I certainly respected that. I would have loved to have had him come down and shoot an episode. But the stories have diverged, and if you really think about it, the advantage that we have is we've had, by the end of this season, I think we will have had 83 hours to tell a zombie story. You go to movies and you see it's 2 hours. You have to do everything that we're doing in 2 hours. So the fact that you get to delve into these great character moments makes it better. So having the first zombie show on television was a stroke of genius by Frank and Gallan Hurd, because you can tell this story in a continuing saga, hour after hour after hour. And that's something that these guys, when they were making the movies in the 80s, you never had that luxury to tell a story that long. So I think it has done a tremendous amount for the horror genre, for the zombie genre, because now zombies are pop culture. You know, there's commercials and there's video games and there's
zombies are
the
monster of the zeitgeist, right? You know, for the last 5 years, it's all zombie. Look at the Republican debates.
There it was. I'm actually going to do a question, gentleman next to you. Oh, okay. Well, then we'll get another question from Twitter. This is from @Vican1213. Mike, you can grab this one. What are some tips for a first-time Halloween Horror Nights attender?
So if you're coming to the event for the very first time, and this is the year doing it, you couldn't...
Sensible shoes.
Yes. Yes, comfortable footwear, and this couldn't be a better year for you to experience the event, because you're really going to get a nice cross-section of our past. From I think the first maze you should go in line and stand in is our 25th anniversary maze. That single maze is going to give you a great table of contents of a lot of the environments and characters that our amazing team of people have created over the past 25 years. But even before that, definitely listen to John. Sensible shoes.
Another question from the audience? One, maybe two more. We've got one there.
Hi, this question is for Chandler, kind of unrelated to Horror Nights, but referring to the pudding scene in The Walking Dead, did you actually like pudding, and if after, did you not like it anymore?
I don't really eat much pudding. I never really did. But I mean, it wasn't bad pudding. I mean, Bob did a pretty good job. No, I wouldn't say that I like pudding anymore after that.
I tried to limit the number of takes to 72.
Yeah.
We had 19.
Did you direct that episode?
I directed that episode. We had 19 jars of pudding, and the props guy, John Sanders, was like, "How many jars do you think we'll need?" I was like, I think I even went to you at the beginning and went, "We'll just try to keep this simple," because he had to sit there and take 4, and it was a very complicated shot because it was a techno crane shot. So the shot, we had to operate this crane, and the crane had to go up and see his shoes and his him eating the pudding, and then the zombie arm behind him. So it wasn't just it wasn't a simple shot. It was a little technical. So yeah, I'm glad that we were smart about it.
Too. And I think we have time for one last.
Do you know what? Can you do 2 more? Because that guy's been raising.
But she needs one too.
Well, thank you.
Do it at the same time.
This is, I guess, specifically for Mike, with all your history and years with this event, and now 25 being unleashed. Any desire to put on some makeup and a costume and get out there for one last scare?
One night a year, we all, the show direction team, and I think, some of us go out and perform in the event. I was in the Purge zone last year for a night. Laura, where did you go? Did you do it last year? No? You've done it before, though. Yeah. So yeah, but I was Jack the Clown for 2000. I was one of the Jacks in the zones in 2000. So, but I can't compete with.
You want to know a cool secret? But there's a thing called Comic-Con in San Diego, which is now huge. But it used to be when my first movie premiered at the second Comic-Con. There were like 600 people. But anyway. When you go to Comic-Con now, if you have any celebrity, you really can't walk the floor. Because it's like everybody who'd recognize you in one place. So I was with Adam Savage, and actually I shouldn't say, I was with some famous people, recognizable people. And
we were on Mythbusters.
We really wanted to go see stuff, and you can't. Well, I'll tell you, Guillermo del Toro, I mean, a bunch of guys. And so we all basically got these very cool monster masks. And so we were, so I didn't want to say anything, but incredibly famous people are here tonight playing monsters. You won't know. But so don't say anything to offend any of them. But there's a Texas Chainsaw, well, I won't say anything. Just platinum album. That's all I
know. Just say 2 words, Mission Impossible. But he's out there somewhere.
I think we do have time for 2 more questions, so one right over here.
You did
it! I did it! Finally. Thank you guys for coming out here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All appreciate it, I'm sure. My name is Krista Thompson with thefairytaletraveler.com, and I've got a question. Thefairytaletraveler.com.
The Fairy Tale Traveler.
Geek, travel, and lifestyle.
This is for fictional people, or is this
It's for geeky people who love to travel and watch TV and films. So my question is for you, Chandler. I think you are phenomenal. At such a young age, starting out with The Walking Dead, serious pressure in that role, like the drama, amazing. My question is, as you evolve, do you ever find yourself interested in production? Like, you're a talent. So do you ever find yourself saying, man, I really want to make some zombies, or be on the other side, directing, producing, sound, anything like that? Do you ever find any of those things amazing?
Yeah. I mean, when the first season that I was on the show, Galen Hurd, who's one of the executive producers of Walking Dead, I can't remember what the context of the conversation was. She said, when you're 16, you can direct an episode if you want to.
When you're 16?
Yeah. And so, okay.
Where was Gillian Hurd when you were 16?
But yeah, and I think it'd be really cool to direct an episode, and
that's awesome.
You know, I've been loving Greg's work, and I've been thinking about kind of shadowing him for an episode or two.
Totally. I get to see the next episode I direct. I'll try to get out of my trailer and the door will be locked. And I'll be like, what's going on? And I hear Chandler on set, and action! What the hell? I can see it coming. Tuesday morning. All right.
All right.
That was a great question. Thank you.
And then
Gonna find out when
You were worth the wait.
one last question.
Somebody very enthusiastic.
You got to be really excited about this one.
It's not that exciting.
Yeah, right there. That's got to be it.
Now he's not.
That is the guy who.
Pressure's on, man. This special better be great.
It better be good.
We'll make it great. John will make it great.
It is for John.
Good.
John, your son Max is sort of one of the up-and-coming screenwriters of Hollywood these days. I mean, he has Victor Frankenstein coming out, which seems like more of an action movie, but I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be a great Son of Landis horror movie somewhere down the line.
I have no idea. Max, my son, my wife Deborah and I have 2 kids, and one of them is Max. Max has been writing scripts. He was dysgraphic, which means like all your doctors, you can't read their writing at all. And he really had problems with it when he was little. And so he worked with a thing called an Alpha Smart, which essentially was a keyboard. And so, which resulted in him at the age of 7, he could type faster than anyone in the world. And when he was 8 years old, they came out with a program called Final Draft, which now everyone uses, and I bought it for him. And Max has been writing screenplays since he was 8 years old, and he's written hundreds. And he always had, when he was little, he had the best titles. One was called Days of the Worst, and one was Love and Trouble. My favorite was Yelp and Dopey. Anyway, he's always been a writer, and he's a wonderful writer. I mean, he really is.
He's the real deal.
He's the real deal, and so damn prolific, it's annoying. I mean, he just churns it out. Listen, he's got 5 films that opened this year. American Ultra already came out, and a movie called Mr. Right. By the way, I've seen none of them.
I saw American Ultra. It was good.
American Ultra I saw. It's really good, actually. But the Chronicle, his film, was really good. He's got Victor Frankenstein.
2 TV shows he's doing.
Well, he's now running a show, another version. Oh man,
Isn't it
Douglas Adams' Dirk Gently,
Oh yeah.
which they're about to start shooting. But he's amazing, and he's totally. By the way, he's completely done this by himself. When he was a teenager, like 13, 14, I used to take scripts and go in LA and say to agents, really, you should look at my son, but you should read this. And it was fascinating because, I guess because he was my son, or I don't know why, I couldn't get him an agent. No, because they don't read, they were like, that's one of the reasons why they're making so many graphic novel movies now. Because they look at it and go, oh, I see what it is. Anyway, but Max is amazing. And I haven't seen Victor Frankenstein, but he wrote it as Frankenstein. It stars Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy and that beautiful girl from Downton Abbey. I don't know her name. I don't know. Who? The oldest daughter, the really elegant one with the dark hair. The one. I don't know. No, not Cinderella. Yeah, Michelle, thank you, her. Anyway, and it was directed, it's British, it was all British production. And I haven't seen it, I don't know anything about it, except that it was the best script I've ever read. Wow. And I really, and not only was it the best script I ever read, but it really pissed me off, because I said, Max, why wouldn't you think of showing this to me? And what people all the time say to me, why don't you have he's very hot now, and they say, why don't you have your son Max write you a script? And I answered truthfully, I can't afford Max. The good news is he's off the payroll. Bought his own house, his own car. But he's insane and brilliant. And you've known him for years. Wait, okay, listen to this. So Max was at the University of Miami for, I think, 2 years or a year and a half. During which time, on his own, he got an agent and a manager. Anyway, Tell the story.
Oh yeah, well, I met Max. There was a friend of ours was doing a documentary, so we went down about being a kid that's a fan of the monster genre, and we were interviewing Max for the documentary. And after we got done, he said, "Yeah, so thanks. I gotta move. My dad's picking me up in 2 days because I'm flying back home. Can you help me move my couch to the dumpster out front?" I went, "Yeah, okay." So we picked up his couch, awful college couch, awful, and carried it to the dumpster. That's the first time I met him, and we've been friends ever since. He's just a really cool kid, and obviously you're a proud dad.
I'm very proud and nervous all the time. You know.
There were probably 9 scripts in that couch, by the way. I would have gone into the dumpster.
No, I'm not
out.
I'm not exaggerating. He wrote a script like 2 weeks ago. He writes too fast. It's really kind of annoying, you know. It's just like, here, Dad, read this. Wait, when did you write this? The last 4 days. It's like, what? And I read it's called Deeper. It's so cool. They've sold it already. It's going to be made.
I think we do have one last question. There it is, quickly.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for 10 amazing years you've been inviting us back. I'm Richard Dunham from Channel 4. We don't have an affiliation, but we are the, hold it, local station. Jim, we missed you this morning. Mr. Ayala did a fantastic job for filling in. Mr. Landis, thank you for 45 amazing years of movies that have become the lexicon and interwoven into all of my communication. But I'm not here for just me. Greg, met this morning, had a chance to talk, and I told you that I got a good buddy that is huge into your movies. By the way, I want to skip you over Chandler. It's like watching an Olsen twin grow up in a horror movie. It's freaking awesome. I can't wait till you get facial hair. It's gonna be...
His voice is deeper than Andy Lincoln's, though, just so we know.
But my good buddy here, Ryan, last day with us as a director. He's moving on to a brand new show, but he's told me everything about you. One question for you, Greg, is that you have credits on both Boogie Nights and Goldmember.
Yes, exactly.
What were those parts? And my final question to you, and as you said in the very beginning, you have the microphone so you kind of control the audience. If I hold this microphone long enough, may my friend Ryan, a huge horror fan nerd, come up and take a selfie with you.
Of course, well listen, he can do that anyway, no problem, we'll do
Ryan,
that.
go take a picture. Now, which members did you work on?
Wait, Ryan, he promises to stay here when they're finished, and then come up, okay? Don't do it now, thank you.
Boogie Nights, yes. Goldmember, you know, we got a call from Paul Thomas Anderson to make a prosthetic. There's kids probably around here somewhere, so I can't really get into too much detail, Chandler.
You made the
He's not a kid anymore, but you know what I mean. But I have to say, one of the oddest things is, for about 10 years, people would introduce me as, "This is Greg Nicotero, he made the penis in Boogie Nights." That was my opening line. And I'll never forget, I was with Dana Gould. Sorry, we're live streaming, right? Yeah, I know. See that? Turn that shit off. Sorry. But I was at a Simpsons table read with a friend named Dana Gould, who's a brilliant comedy writer, and he was one of the writers in The Simpsons, and he invited me down, and I sat and listened to all the actors read the script. It was one of the greatest moments to watch them do all the voices. And so Dana introduces me to all the actors afterwards, and that's how he introduced me. "This is Greg, he did the penis in Boogie Nights." And I, at one point, said to Frank Azaria, "I've done other movies too. I've done a couple other things. I did The Green Mile, I did Dances with Wolves," but nobody cared. They just wanted it. Fortunately, thanks to Walking Dead, now I have 2 things I can talk about. But Richard, thank you. It was very nice what you said today. And I just want to say, everybody, this has been really fun. Thank you guys all for being enthusiastic and listening to our silliness up here. Thanks.
Awesome, guys. We are going to wrap it up. Thank you, guys. Please give them a huge round of applause. Jim Tyler, Mike Aiello, John Landis, Chandler Riggs, Greg Nicotero. Incredible, guys. Thank you so much for being up.